Okay, so for my application project, I decided to study the somatics practice of Pilates. And what made me kind of choose this idea is that I have been taking a CoreMax Pilates class through UVU this semester, and it has been a great experience for me. Long story short, I had a very bad back injury that was affecting me a lot at the beginning of the semester, and I had been going to physical therapist and the chiropractor, and it turns out my lower back was crooked, my vertebrae had like shifted out to the side, and I had a lot of weakness there and lack of stability. And so I had been going a lot to the chiropractor and the physical therapist, and also taking my Pilates class through school. And one day, the chiropractor, he said, you know, your back is getting a lot of functionality pretty quickly. It's improving a ton. And he said, what are you doing outside of this? Are you doing anything? And I said, oh, I'm taking a Pilates class. And he was like, oh, that's great. That is the best way to help the functionality of the spine, to stabilize the core, to improve your functionality in life in general, your posture, just everything. And I've noticed it so much in dance. It has helped me be able to move and have more mobility, stability, and not be in pain all the time, and heal my back a lot quicker than I otherwise would have. And so my intent of this project is to show how the LMA concepts have been so applicable in doing these proper techniques that increase the muscle efficiency. There's a lot of things like hollowing in the belly and lengthening in the spine and counter tensions that allow this proper technique to really build muscle in the right places and allow all this improvement that I've been seeing, which has been awesome. So that's a little preface before I show some of the movement. Okay, so the first thing we do at the beginning of every Pilates class is called Hundreds 1 and Hundreds 2. And basically the point of that is to, in the words of my teacher, start working the powerhouse. She says the powerhouse has to work before everything else can work. And the powerhouse, of course, is your core. So already we have this idea of this core distal. Everything is coming from the core, and the core is supporting all the other movement, which I'm going to show you in a sec. And then there's going to be a lot of counter tensions that I'm about to show you, a lot of different shape flow support things that are going on. And so it's very important to have that breath going on as well. Core distal and breath are going to be very prominent in a lot of these exercises. I was interviewing my teacher in preparation for this. She was talking about breath, how when you inhale, that is to prepare to do the movement, and the exhale is to execute the movement. And that to be able to visualize all these concepts, you need to have good mind-body connectivity, and the Pilates breath is what creates that. So here is Hundreds 1. Do this with me. You're going to lay on your back. The very first thing we're going to do is hollow out that belly. You're really going, it's called imprinting in Pilates, and you're going to think of scooping out the belly, like scooping out ice cream. So first you scoop out the belly and hollow it, and then you're going to think of shortening here on the sides, shorten, and then you're going to think of lengthening out the top of the head. So that's a lot of things at once. You got this scooping, hollowing going on, you've got the shortening of the torso, and you've got that length coming out your head. And then you're going to breathe in for 5, out for 5 as you pump your hands. Do it with me. So if you can feel that, all of those counter tensions make it so that the deep intrinsic muscles are working. If you try this and you bulge out in your tummy and try to sit up, you're putting a lot of strain in your lower back, and you're going to be working and straining your neck quite a bit, which isn't what you want to work. So, and then also if you relax again, if you think about just shortening in the spine and then trying to lift up and shortening everything, that's going to be very hard as well. So it really is important to have all of those things happening at once. I drew a picture to help with this. So we've got our core distal and our breath symbols, and then if you can see this little person I drew, you've got that idea of hollowing, going down into the belly, scooping out, and then those arrows underneath, everything's shortening and coming into that core. And then this is remembering that length out of the head. And so all those things are present just within the warm-up of Pilates. Okay, hundreds 2 is the same exact idea. What you're going to do is you're going to push with your palms to straighten the legs, and then you do that same idea of hollowing, shortening, and lengthening, and you breathe in and out. So that has those same ideas. Next thing I'm going to talk about is bridges. For this, you're going to lay on the ground, and this is a movement that we're going to do very successively. You are going to start and basically peel your back off the ground one vertebrae at a time. And then I'm feeling a lot of lengthening going on here. This is definitely lengthening in my whole spine. Then you're going to lower back down one vertebrae at a time. Try this with me and think about really moving one vertebrae at a time. So again, I breathe in. I exhale to start moving one vertebrae at a time till I'm flat. And you want to feel a lot of length. Then I'm going to lower one vertebrae at a time and find neutral. Notice I used bound flow and sustained time as I did that. A lot of movements in Pilates are bound flow and sustained time because you do need to be able to stop at any moment and have that mind-body connectivity going on. If I were to just do this, fast, it wouldn't have that success movement going on, and I would skip over parts of the spine. It is important to move this successively because a lot of back issues are caused because of, a part of the back being tight or weak because it isn't accessed. The muscles aren't working there, or certain muscles are overworking. This exercise allows all parts of the spine to develop musculature, which strengthens that entire core and prevents back issues. So yeah. Okay, so typically after we warm up in Pilates, we do the 5-part ab series. And so I'm going to go through that while I talk through the elements of BEST that I see are present. So the first thing is the single leg stretch. And for that, we're going to do that same hollowing, scooping out the belly, shortening in the torso, lengthening out the neck. And you're going to grab your leg and switch it. While keeping that breath going. Notice this movement is occurring sagittally. And if you think about it, the spine curves sagittally, unless you're like me and it curves horizontally. But ideally, the spine does curve sagittally. So it makes sense that you would want to work that musculature along the spine and have it stabilize it in that sagittal position. So I believe that is why a lot of Pilates work is in the sagittal plane. Because it is reinforcing that stability while the spine is straight. And then the next thing is the double leg stretch. So for this one, I'm doing that same hollowing. That's present for all of them. So just always think hollow and imprint that belly. And so for this, I'm going out. Notice that this is a lot harder, I'm shaking, than this. That is because this is a smaller kinesphere and this is a larger kinesphere. I drew a picture to help me explain this. So in this picture with the smaller kinesphere, it is easier to hollow because most of the weight is around center. It's pretty close to center, and so it's easy to maintain that position because there's not a lot of opposition. And so then in this picture, when the extremities are outstretched and you're reaching out long, it makes it harder to maintain that hold position because your abdominals have to work twice as hard to keep that hollowed rather than letting it bulge. And so a lot of times in Pilates, the modifications will be a smaller kinesphere because it will be easier, less taxing on the abdominals, so you can really find that support. And then a lot of, like sometimes she'll give us the more challenging option, which is usually a larger kinesphere because it taxes the abdominals more and it requires more focus to that core to make sure it has that stability, so that you can move from a small kinesphere to a large kinesphere and have that be solid. Okay, so I did want to add on the double straight leg that the arms have an arcing pathway, and it is a very controlled, gradual arcing pathway. And it's bound flow as well. And I thought about why that is that it arcs rather than just like spoking out. And the arc kind of increases the amount of strength that I need in my abdominals. And so if I were to just spoke out, it would be more of I'm gripping, I'm all of a sudden needing to grip, versus really having that needing more stability and strength and then coming in. And so it just is a more gradual change and kind of reinforces that stability there. The next thing is the double straight legs. That one is sagittal as well. I do still have that hollowing action going on. And I have a very direct focus. Most things in Pilates do have a very direct focus. You have a mental focus very directly on your abdominals and your core and making sure that that is strong and supported. But then you have your eyes are typically, your vision is typically direct focus just straight ahead, because it does require a lot of body-mind action going on. So, and then after that we have the double leg lower. For this one I'm going to put my legs straight up, put my hands behind my head, keep my arms nice and wide. And for this one is really important to hollow, and it becomes really hard because you're going to lower the legs and bring them back up. And you only want to go a little bit. If I go too much, it'll cause me to bulge and stick out, and I want to really keep that hollowed. And so, yeah. The next one is the crisscrosses. And that one, I feel a lot of core distal, that it is a lot of cross lateral as well. It really does get the obliques going as well in the front, which is pretty much all parts of the core. My main takeaway is that these LMA concepts are super useful in visualizing and executing the correct Pilates technique. I wrote a list, and I want to kind of go through them and recap basically my findings. So, having an awareness of the core distal relationship just allows more strength in your abdominals. Having breath allows that mind-body connection. Having successive movement allows each vertebrae to move individually, and that helps all of the muscles to be activated. And then bound flow with sustained time. That helps the movement to be controlled and deliberate, which is super important in Pilates. And then the direct space, that helps with having a clear focus and that mind-body connection again. And then that combination of hollowing, lengthening, and shortening gets those deep intrinsic muscles versus just the superficial ones, so it can have more of a positive permanent change. And then the arcing, that adds gradual intensity that is supported by the core. Versus like an immediate intensity. And then the counter tensions, those again help the deep intrinsic muscles. The sagittal plane reinforces the stability of the spine. The large kinesphere, that is something that you can work up to. As you get stronger in Pilates, you can add more weight to your by extending your distal edges, and then you can be comfortable moving in all kinespheres. With a lot of stability, mobility. So basically, these LMA concepts have enhanced a lot of my knowledge and application outside of just this project. For me personally, LMA is a lot more than just observing and looking at a dance, I personally have found it very useful for applying and analyzing inside my own body. For example, just with my back injury, I have used a lot of these things with the way I stand and walk and sit and my posture, and especially when I am dancing in my other classes, because I want to protect and take care of my back. And so I am thinking about, do I have that core distal relationship going on? Am I having proper counter tensions that are facilitating my ability to move easily? And what kind of shape flow support qualities am I using? These have really been useful for me outside of Pilates and even outside of dance, just in my daily life. So LMA is great.